There are a lot of issues to take into account when negotiating joint venture agreements for design and construction projects, but one of the most important is how the joint ventures might break a deadlocked one-to-one vote where the parties are unable to agree in real time about how they should proceed to answer any particular question or address any challenge that sits before the joint venture. In most cases, the joint venture agreement will have one party being the larger and more powerful of the two joint ventures. And in a lot of cases, that joint venture is going to give itself the unilateral power to break a deadlock among the joint ventures. And that's certainly something that is risky for the smaller joint venture. And so the question is, how should this be addressed in joint venture agreements? And there's some competing legitimate concerns here, bearing in mind that on design and construction projects, there are some decisions that need to be made very quickly for the good of the joint venture and the good of the project. On some level, both joint ventures might prefer a more slow and deliberate process for resolving any disputes or any lack of agreement among them. However, since they are going to be actively pursuing a design and construction project, it's not always possible to let disputes play out over weeks or months or years. To execute the job, some decisions need to be made quickly. And allowing one party to designate itself as the one with the ultimate power to break deadlock ties between the joint ventures allows those decisions to be resolved quickly. And to some extent, that's good for both parties, since theoretically, both parties will share in the profits and losses of the joint venture. And so I could, under some circumstances, understand a business decision for the smaller party to allow the larger party to break certain deadlock disputes amongst them. However, there are other concerns, and I think that there are certainly some decisions where the smaller party would want to be able to take an appeal from whatever interim decision was made by the larger party. Some decisions should require a judge or an arbitrator to break the tie. And there's a number of different approaches to achieving that kind of an outcome. One approach that I've seen in the past is to have the parties form a policy board to make decisions unanimously. Both members of the joint venture would get one vote, and if there was a 1-1 tie for some days, the requirement was for the parties to meet in person. And if the parties were still deadlocked and the decision was not critically important or time sensitive, the decision could be deferred until later. But if there was an important decision relating to project execution which had to be made at that exact moment without delay, then the issue was referred to a senior executive team, and that team would consist of 3 members. 2 would be appointed by the larger of the 2 joint ventures, and of course the smaller party would have 1 vote. And usually the majority vote, which would never come out in the small party's favor, would just be an interim decision. And then at the end of the project, the smaller party could try to undo the decision through mediation, arbitration, or litigation with the joint venture partner. That is just one of many ways that joint ventures can think about how they might go about breaking a deadlocked tie among them when they're in the middle of executing a design and construction project, bearing in mind that some decisions need to be made quickly, other decisions could be made much more slowly and deliberately, but on some level, the smaller of the 2 joint venture partners, and frankly both joint ventures, should want some ability to appeal any interim decisions made to mediation, arbitration, or litigation at the end of the joint venture project.